Comic Mischief? Come on, really? I don't have a problem with the game's ratings. It seems like most games that deserve an M get an M. I've never had a problem with a games rating. I think maybe in the early days we had a problem with one in Europe, and we worked on that in one of the European countries, but at the end of the day, we talked them into what it should be. I don't have a problem with it. Now, but the critic scores, oh boy, I could talk to you all day about that.
Before I get started, I wanted to say there's going to be some spoilers here. Nothing story related, but I will be showing enemies and areas from well into the final hours of the game. No bosses or anything, but, well, you've been warned. Anyway, wow, a lot of foresight from Glenn there. Not too much of a surprise, I suppose, since Glenn has been working in the games industry from as far back as I can tell, 1993. He started off as an artist, eventually working his way up into game design, where he directed Gex 3, Akuji the Heartless, and The Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen 2, which, as a huge Legacy of Kain fan, I did not know, and it's very cool. He stepped away from game design for a bit, working as a producer, where he produced stuff like Dead Space, but went back to directing after Visceral was closed when he started up Sledgehammer Games. There, he directed Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare, and Call of Duty World War II. What I'm trying to get at here is that Glenn has been in the games industry for a long time, and he knows how things work. Game reviews and scores have a huge impact on the people that make them. We're aware, nowadays, that some developers depend on their games receiving high aggregate scores on sites like Metacritic in order for them to be able to receive their bonuses. Also, games that have really high scores tend to sell well due to the sheer hype surrounding those 9s and 10s. The opposite is true too. Games that receive low or middling scores are sometimes bound for death. Even a game receiving an average of a 7 on Metacritic might be doomed to fail. In that way, developers have a sort of tenuous relationship with critics. More so now due to the prevalence of social media and how quickly word of mouth spreads. Also, games are expensive, and time is a luxury for many folk. People want a sure thing. They don't want to gamble on something that might be considered below average. I understand that, though for me personally, I won't know whether or not something is good unless I try it for myself. Hell, some of my favorite games of all time are games with horrible review scores. Once again, I understand, but I might not necessarily agree. But what if the critics are wrong? What if the people telling you a game sucks are simply bad at it? What if there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what a title is attempting to achieve, especially when it comes to games that are difficult, complex, or unique? There's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of discussion online recently regarding the Callisto Protocol. Now, if you don't like a game, that's fine. No one has to like anything. Where I begin to take umbrage, however, is when people start making these bold, declarative statements. For example, popular YouTube critic SkillUp says, in regards to the Callisto Protocol's combat, that, quote, "It's stupid and it doesn't fucking work." Wow, very enlightening. He then provides a series of gameplay clips where he's absolutely getting his ass kicked. Now, once again, no one has to like something. Where I begin to become frustrated is when people who clearly have a poor grasp on how something works begin to tell their giant audience that it's out and out broken. Meanwhile, people are uploading their clips of gameplay to Twitter where they seem to be excelling at the game's combat. So which is it? Is the game fundamentally broken? Or is it something that, given time and practice, you can master? And who are you willing to believe? Doesn't seem to matter, really, because anytime someone posts some gameplay of them succeeding at the game's many combat encounters, there's a horde of people, many of which haven't played the game themselves, who are quick to shoot said gameplay clips down. Well, that doesn't look like the intended way to play. You know what? I'm truly baffled. All the gameplay you're seeing in this video is from my playthrough of the game. Every clip. All the footage you're seeing is of full encounters. No editing. Granted, some of these clips are after multiple tries, but not all of them. And a few of these clips were done on my first attempt. Can you guess which is which? Also, you can see I'm not playing these segments perfectly, okay? I'm not going full Devil May Cry like some of the fancier uploads to Twitter. And every one of these segments features multiple enemies. I'm using the tools that the game is providing to me, and I'm seeing success. I'm also having a lot of fun, and I'm genuinely glad that this game has its own identity. It seems like a lot of people are upset that this game isn't exactly like Dead Space, and why would you want it to be? Why is it that this game, having multiple ways to fight through its combat scenarios, having a nice sense of player expression, is a bad thing? I admit it, I didn't expect coming into this for this game to be a beat 'em up. I was also initially frustrated like a lot of people, but that frustration stemmed from my lack of understanding of the game's core conceits. Once I sat down and tried to figure it out, I was really impressed that Striking Distance was able to make something so familiar and yet distinct at the same time. Also, being a big fan of character action games, I was way on board for what the game was trying to achieve. So, if you're coming into this expecting something slower or more atmospheric, not that Dead Space was ever particularly slow or atmospheric, then I suppose the game being Victor Frankenstein's Punch-Out might be a disappointment. But what does that disappointment have to do with the combat being objectively bad, using air quotes there? That's where I'm having issue. There's this massive witch hunt for Callisto Protocol right now. People are very vocal about their dislike of the game, and I'm sorry, I can't help but feel like at least a part of that is because, how do I put this gently? They suck. Okay, yes, the Callisto Protocol isn't as easily grasped as the combat in Dead Space. Dead Space had this once-in-a-lifetime lightning in a bottle idea. Shoot their limbs. It's insane how succinct it is. But this isn't Dead Space, it's something else. And to me, it's just as satisfying. The game still has all the weight and gravitas as Dead Space. It's still crunchy and punchy. It's gross. It's over the top. It's visceral. And there's still so much we don't know about it. What is the most efficient way to play? What are the best weapons, the best upgrades? These questions are important because next year, Striking Distance is going to be introducing hardcore mode into the Callisto Protocol. If you don't know, Dead Space 2 and 3 featured a permadeath difficulty mode called hardcore mode, and it required a lot of planning to clear. Now, I'll admit, I'm a little concerned about this. The Callisto Protocol is much, and I mean much, harder than any of the Dead Space games. There's a lot more going on mechanically here, and yeah, death comes fast. Personally, I'm not even sure I have what it takes anymore to clear something like that. I finished Dead Space 2 on hardcore mode, but I could never really muster the energy to do it for Dead Space 3. With all this discussion about how horribly broken this game is, though, there's a part of me that really wants to prove people wrong. But even if I can't do it, I'm still looking forward to seeing people that can. And I'm hoping that a community does build around the game. I'm hoping people will continue to discover strategies and tactics that will allow us all to improve at combat. I mean, people are still discovering things about Resident Evil 4. There was a YouTube video recently where someone wondered whether or not the final upgrade for Leon's Silver Ghost, the one that increases the critical damage, would apply to the knife, and yeah, it does. I'm curious to see what people discover about this game. For example, how many people even know about the perfect dodge? The game doesn't tell you about it, which is great. And I'm not going to tell you about it either because there's videos on here of how to do it. But I think it will be interesting to see high-level players incorporate it into their gameplay. Overall, I think what's most frustrating is this sense that it's already been decided, right? The Callisto Protocol sucks. There's hardly any room for discussion about it because all discussion is being either shut down or villainized. My only hope is that eventually, people will come around to the game and give it a shot. Also, I'm hoping that it sells well enough to warrant a sequel. The Callisto Protocol has a great foundation, and I think a sequel could take player feedback and work itself into something that isn't so universally panned. Despite how much I love the game, there's always room for improvement, And I'd really hate to see a new IP that I like this much go to waste because a bunch of people who weren't willing to meet it on its own terms doomed it to failure. All right, everyone. If you made it this far into the video, just allow me to say thank you for spending your time here. I know I haven't been uploading really at all since I put out those few YouTube shorts. I just don't have a lot of time anymore, and it takes a while to put this stuff together. Also, it's kind of hard for me to find a topic or a game that I feel passionately enough to like sit down for enough time to put one of these things together. But I felt really passionately about this game, and I hope that even if you disagree with what I say here, that you at least had a good time. Consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in another video. Take care.